Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon on assignment in Chicago.
Tony Kornheiser, it's amazing how many of your assignments coincide with Northwestern home games.
It's amazing. Coincidental. Cheeseheads, Tony.
Really?
Cheeseheads are invading Chicago. Wisconsin, Badgers, Cheeseheads.
But you are confidently predicting a Northwestern victory, just like they did against
I don't like
Maryland,
predicting,
right?
but I feel good about playing them well. Wisconsin's really good. Really good, they are.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, Tony Bennett retires, Georgia faces Texas, and the Lions try to hand the Vikings their first loss. But we begin today with one of the great playoff games ever. Last night, Cleveland and the Yankees exchanged tying and go-ahead home runs in the 8th, 9th, and 10th innings as the game swayed back and forth like a seesaw. Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, and rookie pinch hitter John Kensey Noel all hit home runs, but Cleveland finally won on David Fry's blast in the 10th. Wilbon, what is the word you would use to describe this game?
Cinematic. Tony, to me, it's one of the great endings to a baseball game ever. And I'm going to focus, these things all have context. I'm going to focus on, I'm not a Clevelander, but I'm a Midwestern kid. And I spent a lot of time professionally in Cleveland watching Cleveland humiliated, depressed, downtrodden, having left stadiums with the greatest losses in sports, like The Drive, authored by John Elway. I was standing on the field. I watched them lose The Fumble, another big playoff game the Browns lost to Denver. I was here for any number of Michael Jordan games where he just took Cleveland apart and left the city for dead, Tone, just left them forlorn. I was here when the Cubs beat the Indians coming back from a 3-1 deficit to win the World Series. I've seen all of this. And to see Cleveland celebrate and feel like the city felt last night. I know this isn't specifically the baseball, but the hugs, I had goosebumps. I thought, I'm happy for them. I know the losses they've had and the spirit of the city and how it's been crushed at times. And the joy Cleveland felt last night, I just wanted to applaud and hug somebody from Cleveland. That's what I wanted to do. Cinematic for me.
That's a good word. I would give you two words here, not the words I'm picking, but LeBron James. He elevated Cleveland. He's a hometown kid. He won a championship there, and everybody remembers that. No, the word that I would use actually is fantastic. And if I could use another word, it would be series saving, because that's what happened last night. After Stanton and Judge had hit those home runs, you thought to yourself,
it was over.
They're going out.
It's over.
They're going out. They're going out. They're going to be down 3-0. They're not going to win again. And it was going to be particularly soul-crushing because it came off their great reliever, Emmanuel Clase, who was not up to the moment. He'd only allowed 2 home runs the entire regular season. He allowed back-to-back home runs in a minute.
Yeah.
So you would get the feeling that it was actually fairly close to an unreal circumstance.
I
know that you like to say, I know that you like to talk about scream out loud moments. I don't care about the bill. I'm going to go for a while. You like to talk about scream out loud moments. I don't do that, but I do text people, and you would know this because I texted you. Because after Judge and Stanton hit those home runs, I texted you that this is going to rip the heart out of Cleveland.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And then when Noel, who, by the way, has one of the great nicknames in sports, the Big Christmas, when Noel gets up there, and he'd only been 1 for 15 in the entire playoffs, when he gets up there and hits a home run, I had another text, and the text was, who saw this coming? Not me. Not me. That playoff game was spectacular, Mike. It kept me away. I didn't see a single snap of the football game. I missed Shohei's home run to lead off the game, and we can stop that narrative because he hits it with nobody on now. But this is one of the greatest games I've ever seen. It is.
Ever seen you? And again, the emotion of sport. And the reality TV can't reproduce this. Nothing does this. I mean, sport does this. And again, for me, particularly, and I know for a lot of people who are closer to it than I am, Cleveland, man, wow. Let's move to Tony Bennett's stunning decision to step down as the men's basketball coach at the University of Virginia. Bennett spent 15 years with the Cavaliers, winning the NCAA championship in 2019, Today, he told reporters, quote, "I'm no longer the best coach to lead this program in the current environment. I believe it's right for players to receive revenue, but the game and college athletics are not in a healthy spot. I think I was equipped to do the job the old way," close quote. Tone, what do you make of Bennett's decision and his reasons?
I understand the impulse for him to get out of coaching. I watched him at that press conference. I thought he was very sincere and very emotional, saying, "I'm not the right guy to coach this team right now." He's 55 years old, which should be in the prime of his coaching career. He's won a national championship, and as good as Virginia has been over the years, they never won a national championship before. He won that national championship. But he's played under one set of rules his whole life, as his father did before him. And those rules have changed now. Now you give cash to people. Now you have to talk to their agents. And now that transfer portal is constantly churning, and I imagine Tony Bennett hates this in the way that Roy Williams and Mike Krzyzewski and Jim Boeheim and Jay Wright hated the same thing. But I'm going to say something now that I think needs to be said. And I like Tony Bennett very much. He quit on his team. We're 3 weeks away from the season now, Mike. I think he should have tried to coach the team this year. College is not like the pros. Kids go to college for the coach, the very specific coach. LeBron James has had a new coach every single year, and he could not care less. But when you recruit a kid in college, it's the coach and the kid that have that relationship, and the presumption is that that guy's going to stay the whole year. Now, maybe he did this to guarantee that one of his assistants would get the job. But my thoughts are, wow, how do his players feel right now?
Tone, I hear you, and it's a sacred relationship. And I'd be with you for the previous 150 years of college sports, but not anymore. And look, I'm a trustee at a university in the Big Ten, and I know the upheaval every single school is dealing with, Tony. Upheaval. Unprecedented upheaval. And so when Tony Bennett says, "I can't do this anymore," Tony, the things you have now, you outlined it beautifully. So now a coach who's used to coaching kids playing basketball, he's got to deal with an agent as if he's a pro, as if he's a general manager, and therefore Duke is one of the schools that's done this. You have to hire a general manager of a college basketball program. And by the way, won't be the only sport. You have to hire a capologist. Tony, my son is 16. He walks in the house one day and says, "Dad, Joey gets an offer from A and B, and these are 2 top 10 schools in America. I won't name the schools." And I go, "Well, his recruitment's over because his parents, he's got to go to one of those 2 schools." He says, "No, Dad. This other school, third school, School C, offered him $400,000 a year." What? This is a new world, Tone. And when Tony Bennett probably thinks of it, he probably thinks, "I literally cannot do this." And I don't want him there with kids if he realizes it's over. His heart isn't in it. He's not the only one. This is so wild, Tony, and different upheaval.
Do you know that the ACC, which is the best basketball conference in the country by a lot, now has no coaches who have ever won national championships because Krzyzewski and Williams and Boeheim and Bennett, they're all gone. Feels odd to me. Let's move to college football. And the biggest game this weekend, number 5, Georgia at number 1, Texas. They've played 5 times before, dating back to 1949, but only once in this century. So let's get right to it, Wilbon. Do you favor Georgia or Texas?
Georgia, but just for one reason. I'm not deep in the weeds in this. I'm not going to get into matchups because I don't know anything about them. But Georgia's played a lot of these games with Kirby Smart. And there's something like 9-6 against top 5 ranked teams. Georgia knows how to do this. They've been involved in a lot of these. Texas historically has, going back, 60 years, more than that, but not lately as much. And so this is just a hunch. That's all I'm playing. I care less about predicting the game than I do to watch it. I can't wait to watch this game, to settle in and see how it's played. These 2 behemoths. But I would take Georgia. I'm not a betting man, but I would take Georgia in this instance just because of that one reason, that edge.
And I agree with that reason, and I can amplify that reason. I'd like to lean towards Texas because I really do think they probably have the better team. I was really impressed when they went up to Michigan and they beat Michigan. I was less impressed when they beat Oklahoma because Oklahoma's not a great squad this year. But my reluctance to just jump on Texas is exactly what you're talking about. That Georgia plays these games all the time. every year. And Texas doesn't play these games every single year. In the SEC, you're going to play the number one team because Alabama's the number one team or LSU's the number one team. Auburn's been the number one team. Florida, Tennessee, Georgia's been the number one team for the last 2 or 3 years. So that's my reluctance because Texas is not used to this. Kirby Smart, 9-6 against top 5 teams. What's Steve Sarkisian? I don't know how many he's ever played. There's a learning curve for Texas. But I'm a little bit concerned, Mike, that maybe Georgia is not a great team this year like we're used to. They did lose to Alabama. They were really close with Kentucky. They were sort of close with Mississippi State. Kentucky, and Texas is allowing 6 points a game. 6 points a game. Not much. Gotta like that. Let's take a break. Coming up, will the Lions put an end to the Vikings' unbeaten record?
And Davante Adams is set to make his Jets debut against the Steelers. But are there better games to focus on this weekend? Yeah.
So the Tony Bennett example sort of seems like people in their 50s and 60s are going to have to leave because they can't navigate this world. I'm just saying I would hope he would have started this year.
They might be able to. They don't want to. They don't want to deal with it. It's crazy.
Pardon the interruption.
Time for toss-up. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves, finishes the show, then plants his rear end on the sofa in front of the TV for most of the next 55 hours. What's first?
Man.
Toss-up, they play on Sunday. Which way are you leaning, Lions or Vikings?
I would have no qualms picking the Lions if they had not lost Aiden Hutchinson. I don't know how that affects a team. Now, they destroyed the Cowboys, so maybe just on momentum from that alone, they can win 1 or 2 games without him. But I don't know. Minnesota's at home where they beat San Francisco, and I find it amazing to say this, but Sam Darnold has been great. And you have to acknowledge Sam Darnold has been great at this point. Minnesota's going to lose eventually. Maybe this will be the time that they lose. They're coming out of a bye. And so is Kansas City, by the way, coming out of a bye. Andy Reid, 21-4 coming out of a bye. Kevin O'Connell hasn't been around that long, 2-0 coming out of a bye. I would like to push here, Mike, but I won't. And I will say Minnesota by this much.
Same thing, Tom. We got the identical feeling on this. Minnesota by that much at home, off the bye. Don't know how the loss of Aiden Hutchinson will impact the Lions, both strategically and emotionally, losing what they have to figure is the best defensive player in the National Football League. I can't wait for this game. This is a game that I will obsess over and watch on Sunday, happily, in my division. And, Sam Darnold and the Vikings, they seem like they're in the position that Detroit was last year and the year before. They're the team, the Vikings are the team now that nobody believes in yet. And they've got the chip on their shoulder saying, okay, fine. Yeah. Detroit sort of moved past that narrowly, and now Detroit's a team a lot of people think can win the NFC, but Minnesota were going, wait a minute, Sam Darnold? So there's some sizzle in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. What's next?
Toss-up, which NFL game most intrigues you? Texans, Packers, Eagles, Giants, or Jets, Steelers?
Okay, so it's not the Eagles and the Giants because the only thing of interest in that game is how many yards Saquon Barkley will get against his old team or who Nick Sirianni will start chirping to. The best game is the Texans and the Packers, and I concede that's the best game. But my feeling is we're going to see a lot more of them as the season goes on. That actually could be a Super Bowl game, like somewhere down the road. So I'm going to pick the Jets and the Steelers because there's intrigue on both sides on this. Will Davante Adams ride in like some sort of conquering hero and change the fortunes of the Jets? Who's going to quarterback the Steelers? How long is it going to last quarterbacking the Steelers? So, Mike, I'm not trying to make the claim that this is the best game, but at this point in the season, for me, I find it to be the most interesting game. That's all.
Well, Tone, that's because it has the most drama and storylines, and people have talked so obsessively, publicly, about the Jets in particular and the Steelers quarterback situation with Mike Tomlin. I guess he's going to let Russ cook for this game. Despite no announcement, it sounds like all the indicators are that Russ will start and not Justin Fields. So it's got the storylines and it's got the drama. But the game I want to see is Houston at Green Bay. So if there's a team I'm wondering over, I don't think the Bears are there yet. They could get there because the improvement seems to be coming. I just talked about Minnesota and Detroit. The Cheeseheads, the Packers, I still sort of doubt them. But you know what? Jordan Love, since he's come back, he's looked mostly great.
Yes,
he's been great, Tony.
Great, Jordan
but
Love.
you know, I have Houston in the AFC Championship game against Kansas City. So, and I'm not
I thought against Baltimore
because I hate the Packers.
Whoa.
Well, no. I just said Baltimore's the
Baltimore.
best. No, I said Baltimore is the best team in the league. I picked at the beginning of the year. I got to stick with it. I had Houston, Kansas City. Baltimore is the best team in the league, but I can't lie about what I had out there. But I want the Packers to go down and go down hard, so I'm rooting for Houston.
That's it.
Cheeseheads.
Let's take one last break, but still to come. Sean Payton wins in his return to New Orleans.
And the Lynx, they try to stay alive against the Liberty tonight. Game 4, NBA Finals. WNBA.
Sean Payton is proving he is a great coach. He is taking a bad Denver team and making them better on a weekly basis with a rookie quarterback.
I don't know how bad they are. They got a defense, though. They got a good defense. I don't know if they're bad.
He's
good.
Proving. Happy time, people. Happy 23rd birthday on Sunday, Paige Beckers. It seems like she's been playing college basketball forever. She was Player of the Year at UConn in her freshman year, which began in 2020. She averaged 20 points and 5.8 assists and led UConn to the Final Four. Beckers was hurt for much of her sophomore year and all of her junior year. By the time Beckers returned to UConn last season, she had been caught in the riptide of Caitlin Clark. Beckers averaged 21.9 points but fell to Clark and Iowa in the Final Four. Beckers will return for a 5th season this fall and will be eligible for a 6th season after that. When she stops playing college ball, Beckers is likely to become the #1 draft pick in the WNBA.
Yeah, I was hoping she'd be the #1 draft pick for a certain franchise in the city I'm sitting in, Chicago, for the Sky. That would be a big deal to have Paige Beckers in the same division. Well, that's not divisions, but so close geographically to Caitlin Clark, and their rivalry with Indiana, Chicago, automatic. I would have loved to have. I don't want to be bad long enough to choose one again, but I'd like to have Paige Beckers.
Happy anniversary, Tampa Bay Rays. Around this day 16 years ago, the Rays beat the Red Sox 3-1 to win the ALCS and reach the World Series for the first time in their 11-year existence. Managed by Joe Madden, those Rays lost the World Series to Philadelphia. The Rays made the World Series again in 2020, this time under Kevin Cash, and lost to the Dodgers. All talk about the Rays now centers on where they will play this coming season. Their home stadium, Tropicana Field, was torn up by Hurricane Milton, and it remains to be seen what repairs beyond a new roof will be needed and when they might be finished. So all sorts of sites are being talked about, from minor league stadia to the Oakland Coliseum. Oakland Rays sounds like Oakland A's.
Yeah, they should be playing in Florida. There's 100 ballparks in Florida within a couple of hour drive or minutes drive from that community. You can get this done. It's not like they're drawing 60,000 a game. They can figure out one of those parks to use right there in that community where maybe it'll help, Tony, the healing process and give people something that they want to go to follow that team where they live.
Happy trails to last night's game for the Saints. Sean Payton brought his Broncos into the city for which he won a Super Bowl, New Orleans, and clobbered the team he walked away from 33-10. Payton called the night special and emotional. Saints fans probably had more negative words in mind as many left early. Running back Alvin Kamara said, quote, "I've been here 8 years and I've never seen the dome clear out like that. If I were a fan, I'd leave too, just being honest," unquote. Saints fell to 2-5 while Payton's Broncos are 4-3. They have a limited talent and a rookie quarterback, and they have a winning record. Sean Payton is turning this thing around.
Yeah, Tony, he is. The Saints, I feel for them. I mean, I've been in that building during the bag over the head days. It ain't fun.
Yeah. Quick to the big finish. If we could, Nebraska unbeaten number 16 Indiana tomorrow. Who you got?
Oh, Mike Lisa, you're not going to want to hear this. Turn away. Indiana stays undefeated, I think, Tone. Virginia Tech beat Boston College last night. Did that surprise you?
No, isn't Virginia Tech a football school? College football tonight, number 2 Oregon at Purdue. You smelling upset?
No, I'm smelling a beatdown. That's what I'm smelling. The Athletic reports Rick Barry, your friend, one of your all-time faves, is a tournament-winning pickleball player. Are you surprised?
I love Rick Barry. I'm not surprised, and I'm not surprised at this quote. I'm not there for any reason. I'm there for one reason, and one reason only. I'm out there to win. That's Rick Barry, kids. Last one, Liberty at Lynx, Game 4 tonight. You sticking with Minnesota?
They got to win. I want to see a Game 5. I picked Minnesota to start this thing. I know the Liberty is on the verge of winning the franchise's first ever championship, but I think they're going to have to do it in New York if they're going to do it at all.
I have to say I really like 3 out of 5 series. I do. Better than 4 out of 7 for me. We're out of time. Try and do better the next time. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
And I'm Mike Wilbon. Have a great weekend, knuckleheads. You can get the PTI podcast on the ESPN app or Apple Podcasts. And now, SportsCenter Live from Austin.
Go Purple.
Tonight's PTI bonus topic.
All right, Wilbon, which unbeaten is more likely to lose, the Chiefs or the Vikings?
Tony, these are both 50-50 games to me. I mean, these are both pick'em games. And so the result is not going to surprise me as long as nobody's getting blowed out. But you know what, Tone? I think the 49ers, even though they don't have McCaffrey, okay, and that's a big absence against that Kansas City defense as well as his plan, I'm still going to go with San Francisco at home to win that game. So that means the Chiefs, who've been involved in every game essentially, is like, by a toenail. I think I'm going to go with them. And Minnesota could lose to Detroit easily. They could, even with MVP Sam Darnold playing like he's playing. But if I got to take one of those two teams to win and remain undefeated, I'm going to take Minnesota at home. So I'm taking the two home teams. I'm taking the Niners in Santa Clara, and I'm taking the Vikings under glass.
Yeah, so I'm going to agree with you in principle that I would not be surprised if both teams lost or if both teams won. I mean, it's a coin flip to me. I don't know. So what I look at is which team needs to win this game more beyond being at home or being away. Because they're going to lose. Nobody's going through undefeated. Kansas City is going to lose. Minnesota is going to lose at some point, and probably more than once before they get into the playoffs. Kansas City is playing on the road and out of conference. So I don't see an urgency for them psychologically to win this game, though they're coming out of a bye, and Andy Reid is 21-4 coming out of a bye.
He's great.
So that's a big thing in their favor. Detroit and Minnesota, that's a division game. Minnesota's at home against a division opponent. It is more meaningful in the standings than the other game. You know, my problem with it is that I think all things being equal, that Detroit is a better team than Minnesota. So I like you, I really don't know. I really don't know in this. But I suspect Kansas City has less skin in this game. That's what I'm saying.
Well, the team that better have a lot of skin in the game is the 49ers. They're the ones who are still, I'm not going to say struggling, but they haven't emerged.
Well,
they haven't flowered. Right. So the 49ers, of all four of those teams, the 49ers, to me, are the team that are in biggest need of a win.
Okay, I'll go with that.
That's it. We're done. Back to you.